Good morning. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Maria Alezanco, and I'm going to expose our research about the acceptance of wearables from a consumer ethical judgment. This research was carried out by Eva Reinares Lara, Isabel Álvarez, Mario Arias Oliva, Cristina Olarte Pascual, and me. Well, the human body has become a support for intelligent technologies as wearables, which are externally worn intelligent devices such as watches, bracelets, glasses, or headphones. Wearables represent an expanding market that has opened an ethical debate about their development, commercialization, and use in modern society. According to the literature, this scenario poses ethical dilemmas in a variety of areas, including the social, economic, environmental, educational, moral, and philosophical. Ferenc et al. State that wearable devices represent more than just a potential economic disruption, but a disruption of the ethics by which we live. Although the ethical issues have been approached from an institutional and organizational perspective, few studies have taken a demand perspective about the influence of ethics on the acceptance and intention of using wearables. So the present study addresses this research gap by modeling the acceptance of capacity-enhancing wearable using ethical judgment as an antecedent of intention to use. Ethical judgment has been defined as a cognitive process in which the individual must judge which course of action is morally right. The result of this work advanced the theoretical development of ethics as applied to the acceptance of new technologies. At the same time, this demand approach will establish operational implications that can help and guide the development and commercialization of capacity-enhancing wearables. Ethics allows us to address the controversy between the potential benefits that can be achieved through technology progress and the duty not to endanger this progress. Well, Redenbach and Robin argued that individuals use more than one reason to make ethical judgments, and thus they established the multidimensional ethics scale. MES, used in the literature to explain the influence of ethical judgment on people's behavior. But Sowner and Sennedy found theoretical problems in that scale, so they proposed a new one called the composite MES. And this one has 5 dimensions: moral equity, relativism, utilitarianism, egoism, and contractualism. We are going to define all of them. Moral equity dimension refers to the individual perception of fairness and justice, as well as what is right and wrong in its broadest sense. Relativism refers to the perception that what is correct is based on parameters embedded in social or cultural systems rather than on individual considerations. Utilitarianism has been defined as an action based on cost and benefit analysis. It must be kept in mind that capacity-enhancing technologies might help in societal advancement and that impeding them could be considered unethical. Egoism has been defined as acting in a manner that promotes only one's own long-term self-interest. This dimension focuses on the consequences for the individuals. And contractualism refers to the individual perception of what is right versus wrong based on notions of an implied contract that exists between business and society. Based on this theoretical background, we propose to advance the knowledge of the impact of ethical judgment and its dimensions on digital natives' intention to use wearable. Thus, the hypotheses that we propose are that the 5 dimensions of ethical judgment, moral equity, relativism, egoism, utilitarianism, and contractualism possibly affects intention to use wearables. To test the proposed hypothesis, an online survey was undertaken with an internet sample of 1,563 digital native higher education students who assessed levels of technological competence. The collected data was analyzed through structural equation modeling, especially using the consistent partial least square technique. To test the proposed hypothesis, the sequential two-step statistical progress was followed. First, assessment of the measurement model, and second, assessment of the structural model. In the framework on new technology, the principal conclusion to be drawn from this work is that the ethical judgment construct has high explanatory power for digital natives' intention to use new capacity-enhancing wearable technologies. Utilitarianism is the most important dimension for wearables. We argue that when more is known about wearables, ethical judgments focus more on whether they are useful to society in terms of their benefits instead of their associated cost and inconvenience. We can state that we leave other ethical aspects in the background, as the devices have already been assimilated and the objection overcoming the framework of circular evolutionary ethics. The effects of relativism is negative, although not significant for intention to use wearables. Relativism is based on the idea that social and cultural systems are important in helping us define our ethical beliefs. In this sense, for a known product which has been socially accepted and is not perceived as bodily invasive, such as wearables, this spread of opinion is not observed in digital natives. The moral equity, ethical judgment dimension had a positive influence on intention to use of wearables. However, was not significant probably because digital natives' ethical judgment is almost all explained by the utilitarianism dimension. The influence of contractualism on intention to use wearable is negative and significant. In other words, and contrary to expectations, the implicit contract that exists between the individual and society inversely influences intention to use wearables. We can say that although wearables are a known quantity and that their use is expected to increase significantly in the coming years, there is no defining social norm in favor or against this device. So the related social pressure might be positive or negative. And to finish, the result of this study allows us to establish a series of operational implications to guide and design the responsible development and commercialization of wearables. The first implication is that any organization that wishes to participate and compete in this sector must develop an ethical strategy based on the ethical judgment of the users. The intensity and the duration of the effects of the 5 ethical judgment inventions on intention to use wearables suggest the following practical implications will help promote their acceptance and prevent their rejection by digital natives. First, companies should focus their efforts on the utilitarianism dimension. To promote the use of wearables, the marketing community must continue to emphasize their utility for society, in line, for example, with the benefits in terms of improved quality of life and the optimization of productivity and economic and time resources. Second, to prevent rejection, companies must focus on reducing or eliminating societal perception of privacy and security problems relating to the use of this device. And third, due to the importance of utilitarianism dimension, public powers must guarantee the rights of individuals in this matter. So thank you very much for your attention.